Hello, my name is Vincent Bizzone, and welcome to this Delta Dynamics video, How to Organize and Manage a Job Shop. This is part 5 in the series, and the title is How Does a Job Shop Compete? So today we're going to talk a little bit about how does a job shop compete, with the hope that you'll learn some things that will enable you to compete more effectively. The first thing that we want to recognize here, though, is that when we talk about a job shop, we're talking about it in terms of its process, okay? So this is a job shop business process. As you're familiar with it from other videos, it's the way a job shop converts quotes to cash. It's the way a job shop makes money. It's the way a job shop works. The competitive nature of a job shop is revealed when you recognize that when a customer releases or issues a request for a quotation, an RFQ, not only does it go to us, it goes to 2 or 3 other competitors. So that means that on every order or every RFQ that we estimate, we're up against competition directly. Now, how does a job shop compete? Well, basically on 3 dimensions. It competes on quality, competes on price, and it competes on lead time. Now, quality is something that you have adequate quality for the market and the product that you're producing, or you don't. If you don't, you won't be in business long. So you have to maintain quality. So not even going to talk about that. Price is another difficult thing to talk about. You can't talk about it in generalities because it changes so much in so many different situations. So there's no way we can really talk about that. Lead time, however, is another matter. Okay, lead time we can talk about because we can do something about it directly. And of course, what we want to do is we want to reduce it. But this is a major competitive factor. In fact, it's such an amazingly competitive factor. Take a look at this. We did a study in a couple different shops, but in this shop in particular, where one of the team members asked, how long does it take us to know that we won an order after we issue the bid? Okay, we call that the bid. And so we had the data and we went through it and we put it together, and what we learned was that half the time, 50% of the time, those orders that we won, we knew it within 5 days, almost right away, okay? And the other 50% that we won kind of trailed out over the next couple of weeks. So we thought this was kind of odd. We thought we were going to get kind of like a bell curve out of this, but we didn't. So one of the guys called up some of the customers and asked them, said, we were surprised by how quickly you responded to our bid, and we got the order. Said, don't you guys wait until you get all of the bids in and compare them for price and lead time and that sort of thing? And the response that they got from customers was that, yes, we try to do that, but there are times when we're up against a time constraint. And so what you provide is something that we need right away. So when we get a response to our RFQ right away, and it's got a lead time that fits our parameters, we'll give that order to that shop. We're not going to wait for other orders to dribble in so that we can make a comparison and maybe we'll save a couple of bucks. It's not worth it. So a word to the wise here is to turn your request for quotations around quickly. Otherwise, you're going to find that work is going to be in somebody else's shop and you're not getting off the dime. So you've got to turn RFQs around quickly. The next thing that we want to look at is lead time, because this plays a role. Order backlog, because this plays a role in lead time. Okay, so here we have a chart from an actual company, shows the backlog over time. over a year. And you can see that it's declining, okay? And you may think that's a bad thing, but it's not, okay? Because the larger the backlog, the longer the lead time. So if you have a large backlog and that's your objective is to book as many orders as you can, what's going to happen is that your lead time is going to stretch out and you're going to become less competitive. And the way that happens is that when you sell a new order, it goes at the end of the queue. So all the work in front of it has to be completed before our new order gets a chance to go through the process. So in this case, what the management in this shop is trying to do is they're trying to find a comfort level for backlogging. In other words, they want to have enough backlog so that they feel secure, that they're not going to run out of work. But on the other hand, they don't want to have too much because that's going to extend the lead time, which will make them uncompetitive. So that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to reduce your lead time. The next thing let's look at is a lead time calculator. This is something that shows you the order by order. That's the first column are the orders. And the second column is the date it was booked, then when it was shipped, and the difference between booked and shipped is the actual lead time for that order, okay? The next thing we want to look at is how well did we do against what we promised. So in the first order here, 1, 2, 3, 4, we promised that on 6/15. We didn't deliver it until 6/18, and so we were 3 days late, and that shows up at a +3. So you can go through these orders. You can come up with an average. In this case, it's 12 days of these orders. And it's even though they're late, they're not too late, and a couple, 3 days late. So I mean, you're trying to get it 100% on time, but that's pretty close. Anyway, you can download this lead time calculator from the Job Shop Knowledge Store website, and it's free. So you can track your work for a while here and track your orders and see what kind of performance you're achieving with those. The next thing that we want to look at is something that you can use. This is I don't know if you want to call it a tool or a technique or whatever, but it's fill in the blank. When you look at the job shop as a process, the operant concept in that process are delays. Delays lengthen the process, okay? Delays are the things that we want to work with. Delays extend lead time, okay? So you can find the delays very easily by just emailing everybody in the shop, send them an email, tell them you want it back right away, and tell them to fill in the blank. Why does it take so long to? And then they fill in why it takes so long to. Excuse me, that immediately points you to delays in the business process that you can investigate and find out if you can reduce them or eliminate them or somehow deal with them to make them less intrusive, if you will, in extending your lead time. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to look at. This is a table from another video, which is how to drive continuous improvement in job shops with metrics. And this is a post-mortem review. And what it is, it's when your order ships, you fill in these different pieces of information. So, for example, you have your order number, your estimated cost, and the actual cost. Now, is the actual cost greater than the estimated cost? If so, then you either have a manufacturing issue or you have a erroneous quote. And it might make some sense to find out what it was that threw that off, if it's any substantial amount. The next column is the margin. Now, the margin is the difference between the selling price and the actual cost. That's the margin, okay? That margin might be targeted for 30, 35, even 40%, okay? So if you're hitting your target margin, great. If you're not, then where's the added cost coming from? Because you should be quoting it with that margin, usually, okay? Not always. Then you ask, did it ship on time? That's a yes or no. So if it came within the actual cost, came within the estimated cost, and it shipped on time, then that's good. That's what you're trying to achieve. You can go through these orders, okay, and you can see which ones are off, so to speak, and those are the ones that bear further investigation, okay, to find out why you missed. Now, the other thing about this is that if you're able to do this consistently, if you're able to ship on time and control your costs so that you come in under the estimate or within the estimate consistently, okay, then you have another competitive advantage. And that competitive advantage is reliability. So you have another dimension, if you will, that you can compete on. And that reliability is worth money to a customer because knowing that they're going to get what they ordered from you when they expect to get it is a very valuable thing, because then they don't have to worry about, oh, what if it comes in late, and then what are we going to do? And then maybe a time constraint on their end, as we said before. So reliability becomes a very important competitive advantage, and you need to merchandise that. You need to talk to customers about that. Now, the problem is that a lot of shops don't compete on reliability because they're not reliable, which means that they can't ship on time consistently. Now, if that's your shop, okay, if you're having that problem in your shop, that you can't ship on time and you can't control your costs, then you really do need to view part one in this series, because part one reveals the hidden problem that all job shops have. And that hidden problem hinders your performance dramatically, interestingly enough. So you need to find out what this hidden problem is. And then part two is how to solve it. But if your issue is that you're not able to ship on time and you're not able to control your cost, and the problem is that your organization is not aligned with the business process. That's the conclusion, if you will, of part one. But it explains how to get there. As Freud said, recognizing a problem is half the success in solving it. I was able to recognize this problem. It's not an easy problem to recognize. You think about it and you say, well, gee, how else would I organize my shop? I mean, this is how you do it. Okay, there's no other way to do it. You can't imagine that there's another way to organize, but there is, okay? And when you start to think in process terms, then you have to start to think about, well, how do I align my organization with that process? And that's what part two tells you, okay? So part two is very valuable. It will absolutely increase your performance because it will allow you to manage the business process. You know, when you're using the organization that you have now, which I call a factory organization because it's a functional organization and it's divided up by departments and skills. When you use that, that type of organization, you cannot manage the business process. One of the things we look at in part one is when we lay that type of organization on a business process, you can see how misaligned it is. And you can immediately recognize that you can't manage that process with that organization. So to learn more about that, I encourage you to view part one if you haven't done that already, and to purchase part two, which will show you how to solve it. And that solution is worth a lot of money to you. In fact, what I'm willing to do is if you buy that part 2, take it home, look at it, play with it, see how it could fit your shop. And if you want to pass, that's fine. We'll talk about it. I'll refund your money. No harm, no foul, as they say. But if you recognize the power of this, what I'll call a new paradigm, and you adapt your organization accordingly, you will immediately begin to reap the rewards of actually being able to manage the business process directly. Okay, that's all I have. This is Vincent Bizzone. Thank you for watching. See you next time.